And then we're seeing this whole thing happening right now, playing out in front of our eyes, where he's punishing the victim, rewarding the aggressor, and giving Putin every benefit of the doubt, and giving no sympathy or support to the country that needs all the sympathy and support. And so it's really perplexing. But the reality is we have to figure out here in Europe what we're going to do for Ukraine. Should Trump throw them under the bus, which seems to be the sort of going hypothesis at the moment.
Our top story this lunchtime, Russia says there is cautious optimism over a ceasefire deal with Ukraine, but there is a lot ahead to be done. The US envoy Steve Witkoff met with President Putin last night. The Kremlin has confirmed he's now on his way back to the US with information to pass to President Donald Trump. President Zelensky has claimed Putin is preparing to reject the ceasefire deal by setting conditions to derail the truce. Joining me now is the author, Financier, and of course, the very outspoken critic of President Putin, Sir Bill Browder. Welcome to the show, sir.
Great to be here.
I think I know what your view is, and I think it's probably based on some pretty shrewd analysis that Putin is going to string Trump along about this ceasefire.
So Putin absolutely has no interest in a ceasefire. He has no interest in ending this war. His only interest right now is to try to find an elegant way not to enrage Donald Trump, who's made this ceasefire a sort of political milestone. And so I think the tactics that I've seen used in the past in these types of negotiations is to try to complicate the discussion, add conditions to the discussion, and make those conditions so unpalatable that the Ukrainians can't possibly accept them, and then blame the breakdown on this 30-day ceasefire on the Ukrainians, which will then feed in more to the Trump anger at Zelensky narrative that has already started.
I mean, Bill, you've been so prominent in taking on Putin. You've got legislation passed to allow countries to sanction Russia. So you are very well plugged into all this. I mean, it does seem to me that Trump will give Putin whatever he wants, just as you've just said, that Putin will supply a narrative that this is ultimately Ukraine's fault. Do you talk to anyone close or well connected to the Trump administration that can get into the head of what on earth President Trump is playing at?
Well, it's interesting because Trump's position is totally contrary to the public opinion in America. Somewhere between 84 and 94% of Americans think Putin is a bad guy. And that's also reflected inside the Republican Party, inside, the heads of a lot of very important people, not in his administration, but in Congress, senators and members of the House of Representatives. And I know that a lot of these people are doing whatever they can to try to right the boat, to try to get this back in a place that makes sense. And the fact that Trump is so stubbornly on Putin's side is very suspicious, to be honest. I mean, it just, Trump was running around the world after the Mueller investigation. Robert Mueller was the special counsel investigating Russian interference and Russian collusion with the Trump campaign back in 2017 and 2018. And Trump was saying at the end, because they didn't decide to prosecute him, that the whole thing was a hoax, that there was nothing there, that he had no special relationship with Russia. And then we're seeing this whole thing happening right now, playing out in front of our eyes, where he's punishing the victim, rewarding the aggressor, and giving Putin every benefit of the doubt, and giving no sympathy or support to the country that needs all the sympathy and support. And so it's really perplexing. But the reality is we have to figure out here in Europe what we're going to do for Ukraine. Should Trump throw them under the bus, which seems to be the sort of going hypothesis at the moment.
Absolutely. And I think that's an important point not to lose sight of, that however awful Trump's behaviour, ultimately it is still asking Europe an existential question. Can you defend your borders without America? Do you think Europe is capable of doing that?
Of course it is. Europe has every capacity to do it. Europe is a very large continent. And if, any individual country couldn't, but if we group together with the European Union, when I say we, the UK, the European Union, group together, our joint economies are 10 times the size of Russia. We have more people than Russia by far. And we have more military equipment and more people in our armies than Russia. It requires some willpower, though. It requires some resources. And and various governments are now stepping up. Of course, Keir Starmer made that speech last week about increasing defense spending from 2 to 2.5% of GDP, going up to 3%. The Germans have gone crazy. They're going to do like 800 billion euros of defense spending. It's now clear that if that's what Trump wanted, he got it. He may not want it in the long term when we're sort of a force to be reckoned with as well. I'm not sure that Putin wants it either, because for the moment, Putin has had this sort of lingering threat over Europe. If Europe gets a backbone, that threat kind of disappears, and he's got to be worried himself.
Absolutely. Well, Bill Browder, the vocal Putin critic, thank you for coming on the show and talking about the latest developments in the Ukraine ceasefire.
At this moment, we have people talking in Russia. We have representatives over there, Steve Witkoff and others, and they're in very serious discussions. As you know, Ukraine has agreed, subject to this, what's happening today, to a complete ceasefire, and we hope Russia will do the same. The billions of dollars is being spent and really wasted so unnecessarily. It should have never happened. We know where we are with Ukraine, and we are getting good signals outside of Russia as to where we are with Russia. And hopefully they'll do the right thing. It's really humanity. We're talking about humanity. We're not talking about the money. But then you add the money to it, and hundreds of billions of dollars is being spent and really wasted so unnecessarily. It should have never happened. He was a great prime minister of the Netherlands. He did a great job, and that's what he's doing right now. So thank you. Well, we'd like to see a ceasefire from Russia, and we have, not been working in the dark. We've been discussing with Ukraine land and pieces of land that would be kept and lost, and all of the other elements of a final agreement. There's a power plant involved, a very big power plant involved. Who's going to get the power plant, and who's going to get this and that? And so, it's not an easy process. The governor, and we have Chris, Chris, supposed to be the most talented man in the world of energy, according. No, he put out a very promising statement, but it wasn't complete. And yeah, I'd love to meet with him or talk to him. But we have to get it over with fast. Every day people are being killed. It's not like, as we sit here, 2 people will be killed. Think of it. We don't need anything that they get. We do it because we want to be helpful. But
Mr. President, some of our allies have said that they're worried that they could be the next to be attacked by Russia. You've spoken directly with the Russian president.
Yeah.
Do you think those fears are justified?
No, I don't. I think when this gets done, it's done. They're going to all want to go home and rest.